From the Oklahoma newsroom, it is time for the Red Zone, our weekly extended look at Oklahoma football. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with fellow columnist Barry Trammell and OU beat writer Ryan Aber. Guys, we're not going to talk Kyler Murray this whole segment, but pretty much Kyler Murray this whole segment. He's the story of not only the college football world around here, but the NFL, Major League Baseball. I mean, everybody's talking about this guy and his decision a week or so ago to go all in to play football. And Ryan, I think the question now becomes, he's gearing up for the Combine, a couple weeks away. He'll be there in, I think, 2 weeks. So what does he need to do at the NFL Combine? What are teams going to be wanting to see or hear from Kyler Murray?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that they want to see and hear that he's completely committed to football. He said that publicly, but there's still a question over, if we'll talk about this in a little bit, but if he's picked by a team that maybe he's not completely sold on, would he still stick with football or would he decide to go in a different direction? I think that's the biggest thing. There's going to be some individual workouts. There's questions over whether he will actually compete on the field at the Combine. But the most pressing thing is going to be in the interview room and how he handles that. He's not a guy who at least shows the fire and emotion the way that Baker Mayfield did. He expresses himself in a little bit different way, and I'm sure NFL teams will want to go back and forth a little bit more about that and his demeanor and his character. Well,
the on-field workouts aren't until March 2nd for quarterbacks, Barry. Ryan's talking about, sort of the off-field stuff, but is there anything on-field? I mean, he may not even do anything on the field. We don't know, but what about the on-field stuff do teams want to know or have a better sense of?
Oh, I don't know that he needs to show him much on the field. The big thing about Kyler Murray is, can he throw over linemen? The offensive linemen, the defensive linemen in the NFL are very tall. He's very short. So it was not a problem on the college gridiron. I think, 5 tip balls this whole season in 2018. So was not a problem in college. He found the passing lane. What can he do to show the NFL scouts that it won't be a problem in the NFL? I don't know what you can do at a combine situation. They'll just have to watch the film and see how he found those lanes. But that's really the only question about his football acumen has always just been that height. His quickness, his decision making, his release, his arm, all those things are spot on. Nobody has a problem with anything except that stature.
Well, and Ryan, from that standpoint, when you think about the line he was playing behind this last year at Oklahoma, I mean, that line was full of guys that a lot of NFL teams are going to be looking at, the very type of guys that he'll be playing behind in the NFL. So, the fact that he wouldn't get more than a handful of passes tipped this last season, doesn't that bode pretty well for teams being, maybe it'll scare off a team or two, but that shouldn't be a huge factor, I would think.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to push away a lot of teams, especially as they watch the film, like Barry said, and see the way he was able to minimize those things and maybe make up for that lack of height. It wasn't a problem at OU. I don't anticipate it being a major problem at the NFL. I think maybe before this season we would have thought, could that really translate? But the fact that Big 12 style quarterbacks, and especially a Lincoln Riley disciple in Baker Mayfield, had so much success this year. We also talk about Patrick Mahomes with Kansas City, what he was able to do. I think those things make teams a little bit more comfortable taking a guy like Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mahomes and Big 12 quarterbacks, Barry. Has the system quarterback thing, has that started to evaporate, or is that going to be at all a concern amongst NFL teams?
Yeah, the old knock against air raid quarterbacks, against the spread quarterbacks, that's pretty much gone. Mahomes and Mayfield this season sort of put the dirt on it. The NFL's gone to hiring air raid coaches, for crying out loud. They can't win on the college level, Cliff Kingsbury. So, if you'll hire the Texas Tech head coach, you'll take an Oklahoma quarterback, no doubt about it.
You'll just throw Cliff Kingsbury under the bus at any opportunity, I think. All right, so lots of to be talked about, looked at as it relates to Kyler Murray with the Combine, but then I think the question starts to emerge, not everybody needs a quarterback, has great needs, not every team. So, Barry, let's start with you. You actually blogged a little bit about this. Who could take Kyler Murray. What are the leading contenders in your mind? Types of teams or teams just that you would go down the list and say these are the teams that might draft him?
Well, the team that needs to draft a quarterback, I think everybody would agree, is the New York Football Giants. Eli Manning is 124 years old and hasn't played well since the 2011 season Super Bowl. But beyond the Giants, and there's a lot of talk about Dwayne Haskins of Ohio State going to the Giants. I don't know if that will happen or not. But after that, the three Floridian teams really strike me. The Dolphins are looking to move on from Ryan Tannehill. The Buccaneers can't be hitching their wagon too much longer to Jameis Winston. And Jacksonville's a total wasteland at quarterback. So the three Florida franchises. After that, the Redskins, their plan was toppled when Alex Smith had the catastrophic injury. That's another one. A lot of talk about the Raiders interested in Kyler Murray, although Derek Carr's been a pretty good quarterback. And he's signed long term. I don't know if that's, that would have to be an infatuation draft pick. But to me, the Giants and the three Florida schools are the ones to keep an eye on.
Ryan,
Florida schools? Or
Florida schools. The Florida. Hey, listen. Don't put
Florida,
listen,
State, Miami.
Listen. Don't put anything past them.
Find that fifth year, sixth year of eligibility for Kyler Murray. Ryan, as it relates to teams that could be interested, Barry mentions the fact that more and more teams are looking at air raid systems, something like that. But then you've got teams that are likely to be drafting in that first round where Kyler Murray's, looking to get picked. Is there a team that's going to need him to step in right away in that system, or maybe a team that's looking to move a guy out? I mean, what are the scenarios that play out in your mind as it relates to teams looking at Kyler Murray?
Well, I think either one is viable when you look at the range where Kyler Murray is expected to be drafted. I don't anticipate him falling beyond that number 13 slot to the Miami Dolphins. They've got Ryan Tannehill there. They could maybe afford to sit him for a year or something. I think there's some teams in that grouping that would be able to take their time a little bit with Kyler Murray. I mean, heck, if somebody even like the Detroit Lions decided to take a jump and say, hey, this is our guy to replace Matt Stafford, they could take a breath and have him sit behind him. But I think for the most part, when you're talking about teams who are going to take a quarterback in the top 13, you're talking about teams who are very likely to need that guy to play right away.
Well, and it's interesting to look at the different scenarios because, Baker Mayfield, Browns take him, and the thought was, well, give him a chance to work in. Well, he basically won that when Tyrod Taylor got hurt in that game. The job was his, and he never lost it. But then a guy like Mason Rudolph gets taken to be that heir apparent, in Pittsburgh to Ben Roethlisberger. So, Barry, I mean, there's a lot of different variables out there, but a lot of teams that might be looking to draft, quarterback in the top, 10 or 15, Ryan's right. They probably do need a guy to step in right away. Is Kyler Murray, he stepped in right away for Baker Mayfield, but is that a lot to ask of a guy in that position?
Oh, taking an NFL snap is a lot to ask for a guy. All those guys are under the gun. But, yeah, most teams want to go similar. We had 4 first-round draft picks at quarterback last year. Only Sam Darnold started the season opener. The other 3, the Joshes, Allen and Rosen, plus Baker Mayfield, won the jobs fairly quickly for a variety of reasons. Even the teams that are sort of acute problem at quarterback don't necessarily want to hand the job over to a guy in July because that's really a tough duty. But we've seen that letting them sit for 2 or 3 years doesn't always work either. So I think if teams that are picking early are wanting to see that guy by the end of the season, no doubt. An interesting phenomenon to me is the proliferation of the old guys quarterbacking in the NFL. You got Brady and Breeze in their 40s. Mm-hmm. Phillip Rivers is an old 37. He looks twice as old as those 2 guys. And Aaron Rodgers don't look now. He's 35 and he's been hurt repeatedly. So the Packers, the Patriots, the Saints, the Chargers, these are teams that are going to have to make quarterback decisions sometime in the near future. Not necessarily in the 2019 season, but they need to start thinking about life after these franchise guys. Maybe this is a year Kyler Murray slides a little bit. Somebody says, hey, let's trade up to wherever. and draft him. He's our quarterback for the future.
Yeah. A lot of scenarios obviously at play, guys, but one of the things, Ryan, you mentioned off the top was, is Kyler Murray definitely done with baseball? And maybe he can say something at the combine magical that makes people believe it, but maybe not, because when we start throwing out these teams, I mean, the Giants, there's at least a track record there that they know what they're doing. They've obviously hung on to Eli Manning too long, but a good franchise. But then you look at somewhere like Jacksonville. I mean, is that a place Kyler Murray wants to play? And is that leverage potentially to say, maybe I will give baseball another try? What's the possibility there?
Yeah, if somebody picks Kyler Murray that he's not completely comfortable with, say the Jacksonville Jaguars, he doesn't feel completely confident with the direction that franchise is going, then he could say, hey, I'm going to go back to baseball and explore that. With the NFL's draft structure the way it is, teams only holding a player's rights for 1 year, he could go do that, play baseball. The Oakland A's have said that they would welcome him back with open arms. They said that in the hours after he announced his decision last week, that or this week, I guess. Time goes by fast.
I know.
But then he could go back in the draft next year, and heck, you could see this exact same thing play out. But Kyler Murray has as much leverage as any prospective NFL player has had in a long, long time. I think back to John Elway. When he was coming out of college as a two-sport guy, he used that leverage to wind up in a positive situation for him. And I'm not saying Kyler Murray's going to do it, but the potential is there if things fall right.
You know, I'm not convinced that he has as much leverage as maybe we think for this reason. He's not a can't-miss prospect. I mean, he's still 5'9", and when you've seen guys in the history of the NFL draft try to exert that leverage, Eli Manning, John Elway, two notable examples, they were in positions of power. And, you know, if Kyler Murray says, hey, you know, I'm just going to go play baseball, you know, he might be able to get away with that, you know, before the draft and play poker with people. But what if they take him anyway? He doesn't want to play baseball. He wants to play football. If the Jaguars take him, then all of a sudden he's going to go do something he really doesn't want to do. I just wonder if he would overplay his hand. I can't picture him doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you that possibility is there, that he says, don't take me, and then someone jumps up and takes him anyway.
Yeah.
But I think still maybe there's some teams, you know, maybe a team like Jacksonville, I think it would be hard for them to jump up and take that and miss out on a guy like that. So I think there's certain teams that might be scared off by it.
Yeah.
There's certain teams that wouldn't be, but it's going to be a poker hand between the two if it comes to that.
Well, and we've seen that Kyler Murray was willing to walk away from a deal he signed with the A's and give back. I mean, like, so the precedent is there that he might do something unexpected in that regard. Okay, lots to come down the pipe still on Kyler Murray. But before we get out of here, let's talk about a little other OU football news. And Ryan, that's Derek Green, a guy that basically just arrived on campus, has decided he's no longer going to be a Sooner, a defensive tackle. What do we know about this right now?
Yeah, just arrived on campus a month ago, was a 2019 signee, signed in December of 2018. Apparently, his grandfather died. He assessed things a little bit, decided that right now he wants to enlist in the U.S. military. Not exactly clear what branch he's planning on enlisting at, but he's also going to put his name in the transfer portal in case he changes his mind on that particular decision. But Oklahoma loses its only defensive tackle signee from the 2019 class. Now, that's a position where they have a little bit of depth right now, but future-wise, they really needed to shore that up. He's the only Ruffin McNeil recruit in that class. So while on paper it's not a massive loss, especially for the 2019 season, it's something that bears keeping an eye on.
Barry, this just continues the sort of growing world of the transfers, the portals, guys leaving before they've even been a full semester anywhere. I mean,
well, it comes on the heels of Ron Tatum on Monday deciding to go in the transfer portal as well, another defensive lineman.
Is there? My question to you, Barry. This is happening. There's no denying it. My question is the NCAA going to have to do something at some point about team sizes and scholarships because you've got teams that are, facing some deficits here.
I was thinking about that when I saw this story. I think they're going to have to raise the scholarship limit per year from 25, because if you got 17, 18 seniors and then you got 7 or 8 transfers, you can't make it up.
Yeah.
And let's say you go with 81 or 82 scholarships instead. Well, that means 3 or 4 guys aren't on scholarship that could be. So you're denying opportunities to athletes, and that's something the NCAA gets really antsy about. So I can see where you'd raise this single season limit up from 25 to 30 to try to alleviate this. I can also see, this is not we saw this from a Southern Cal kid who's on campus a week or two and says, hey, I want to go to Texas instead.
Yeah.
I can see.
Heck, we saw it with Devontae Lampkin a few years ago.
That's right.
From Texas to Oklahoma.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I can see schools getting a little more skittish about bringing in guys in January. If it's a quarterback who might be your starter in August, okay. But a defensive tackle from North Carolina is not coming in and starting. If he gets here in January, he's not starting in August. That's not going to happen. So what exactly is the point? A lot of these kids want to get a good early start, but sometimes they're clearly not ready to start college at the age of 17 or 18, whatever it is. Give them that other 4, 5, 6 months. I can see the reins coming out a little bit.
All right, lots left to be determined on that topic. We'll continue to follow it, so be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.